What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. It's week 4. We have a Friday doubleheader. Before we get into it, please consider subscribing, liking the video if you do enjoy this content. Helps us a lot. Always trying to remind myself to amplify content you like, not always the content you hate, something I struggle with a lot. But thank you if you've done any of that. It really does help a lot. You can leave requests in the comments. We take them, especially for our G5 game, our greasy game. It's sort of the leftover episode where anything we miss on the marquee show, we try to take it there. And last thing, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. We talk sides, we talk totals. Let's dive in. We have a greasy game to start, I suppose, on a Friday doubleheader. Tulsa, Oklahoma State. Okay, Oklahoma State, they need a lot of unpacking. First and foremost, this team is disappointed. That should come as no surprise to anyone in the offseason who paid attention to this team, realizing that they don't have any money. Now you have Gundy coming out, dissing Dan Lanning. That went about as well as expected. But now everyone knows Oklahoma State is pretty much broke. You could have looked at their recruiting rankings. You could have looked at their transfer haul. This team just has a roster more comparable to much of the G5, which is how you only get an 11-point spread in this game. Money's poured in on Tulsa. It opened closer to 2 touchdowns. And the total in the game is 54.5. Now, Tulsa has not been spectacular either. They beat Abilene Christian. That is what it is. Then they lose to New Mexico State 21-14, finishing the game with a 56% post-game win expectancy, a yards per play advantage. So what happened? Well, they had 2 turnover on downs, 2 interceptions, and a missed field goal. Where did all that happen? In New Mexico State territory. They could have won this game maybe 35-7 if they didn't make quite so many errors in the opponent's field position. Now, last week they lose to Navy 42-23. Nothing really to be said there. A couple turnover on downs, but that was a sound loss. So now I'm 0-2 betting Tulsa. But on the other side, Oklahoma State, they have data points that are very hard to evaluate. They beat UT Martin, and then they lose to Oregon. We all know what happened in that game. So I'm not even confident in the snap counts for some of these players, but we'll see moving forward. This is a close projected spread. Injury-wise, Tulsa, Kirk Francis, one of their QBs, he's been out with a concussion. They called it a pretty bad one, so I don't think we see him, but I'm not sure. And then Micah Tease, their Texas A&M transfer at receiver, he missed their last game with an undisclosed injury. Somehow Oklahoma State has sustained a lot of injuries coming into week 4. They're off a bye, so maybe they will be a little healthier. But they weren't talented to begin with. Then they lose one of their QBs. They lose Kason Carpenter on the O-line, Markel Samuel on the O-line, Quentin Stewart at tight end, Oscar Hammond at tight end, Jalen Davies at defensive back. They had a couple injuries in the preseason. Taylor Chetron tore his ACL in the spring. A couple guys kicked off the team. I mean, they're already testing depth, and they don't really have a lot of it. So let's dive into the matchups with Tulsa. So far, they've been a very fast team, and they've been a fairly pass-heavy team, some of that because they're in negative game script. QB Kirk Francis, if he plays, just to highlight him quickly because we don't know, he's basically a game manager. He really doesn't put the ball in harm's way. 0 turnover with he plays, 1 interception, so credited to a skill player. But 61% completion, 5.7 yards per attempt. It's an underneath offense. And Baylor Hayes, his stats aren't that different. He took over for Francis. Has a higher completion percentage, slightly higher yards per attempt, but 3 turnover-worthy plays, 2 interceptions, 1 big-time throw. He'll take a few more chances. His sack rate is also higher, so you're just dealing with a slightly more volatile Kirk Francis when Hayes is in, so it appears. But I think this team generally wants to win with their run game if they can, just don't get a negative game script. They have awesome transfers at running back. Dominic Richardson from Baylor, A.J. Allen from Miami, good recruits. The skill players are actually very good for this team. Even the receivers. Zion Booker, 214 yards. Micah Tease from Texas A&M. He's 118, missed last week. You have Mekhi Miller from Missouri. Brody Foley at tight end from Indiana. They spent some money on the transfer portal. Honestly, I don't know what these teams spent in the portal this offseason. If you told me Tulsa spent more, I wouldn't be that surprised. Only mildly. Anyway, all that's great. The problem with Tulsa is their O-line projected as a below-average unit heading into the season. Turns out they are a below-average unit. They're 79th in pass blocking, 117th in run blocking. What you're seeing on the screen for O-line, that's just an aggregation. They only had one starter back. Their transfers were kind of all over the place. Jaquan Adams from East Tennessee, Sean Hill from NC State, Simon Wilson from Middle Tennessee, and Cam East from Ole Miss. It's a blend of players that have either played a lot at low levels or played little from better programs. So a little volatile, didn't know what we were getting. But fortunately, it doesn't look like Oklahoma State's defense is very good. Now, they played an FCS team, and then they played Dante Moore in Oregon, who did have a first down every time they snapped the ball. Not literally, just on average. Over 10 yards per play, so you snap the ball, on average, you were getting a first down. But we weren't really expecting this defense to be good. They had 4 starters back. 3 of them are in the secondary. None of them were average last year. Their transfers are mostly on defense, and they're kind of all over the board. Like, their best player is a Saginaw Valley transfer in Brandon Rawls. I don't know if that persists, but you can tell just the level of player that is actually on this defense. Yeah, the competition is up, it's down. We're just not expecting it to be very good overall. The expectations weren't high, and they've done nothing to really change that this season. Can Tulsa move the ball? To be honest, I am definitely not sure on this. If I were to pick something that would be the strength of this Oklahoma State defense, it would probably be up front. So maybe they can test that O-line for Tulsa. But on the other side, can we expect Oklahoma State to move the ball with Zane Flores? I doubt it. 51% completion, 5.2 yards per attempt. He has 2 big-time throws, 3 turnover-worthy plays. He doesn't run the ball. The pressure rate for this guy is through the roof at 36.5%. He hasn't been done any favors either. We just mentioned the O-line. The pass catchers are dropping 13% of his passes, and the skill players are atrocious. We don't know who's going to lead the backfield. Caleb Hicks does so far, but Rodney Fields started the year banged up. We don't know if he's going to play. Howland has been hurt in the last game. I think it's going to be a committee of mostly low-level players. Their top receivers are Terrell Davis from Central Oklahoma and Shamar Rigby, the Purdue cast-off. Top guy is 78 yards. It's just not really a serious group of skill players for a P4 program. And the offensive line lost every starter from 2024. That was the only unit that was good on their team last year. They've already had 2 injuries that are problematic. They come in around average. I think there's a chance that this completely tanks and they're even worse than this. Tulsa's defense is the strength of their team. They're currently 5th in efficiency with a weakness in coverage. They did allow 9.4 yards per attempt to Blake Horvath. So tricky offense to prepare for in Navy. They'll throw the ball situationally and teams can be caught sleeping. Tulsa was. They also allowed 7.4 yards per attempt to Stone Earl, who's down playing in the FCS now. As far as the run game, only Navy really got them 5.8 yards per carry. Again, it's that weird scheme. Tulsa only had 3 starters back on defense, but one thing that they did get back was a lot of rotational players. And thought the front 7 would be the strength of the team. So far, it has been. Some decent transfers like Nikki Johnson from Purdue, Tim Hardiman from Arkansas State, and Byron Turner Jr. from Florida State. They've all played roles, and it's been solid. As far as the secondary goes, I think it's still volatile. You can't really convince me they've faced a good passing attack yet. They only brought in 1 transfer in J.D. Drew from Utah State, so we weren't expecting this to be the best unit overall. And so far, that's kind of been how it's played out. I do not want to play this game at all. We show some slight value on the under, and we do show value on Tulsa, largely just because even in the preseason, we didn't have the talent gap between these 2 teams being wide. And so far, I don't really think you can say that either team has showed you we should be vastly changing their power rankings. If anything, I think you should bring them both down, especially Oklahoma State. So we'll stay away from this game. If you force me to play anything, it would be Tulsa. I wasn't even ready to play it at 13.5 because of my scar tissue. So unfortunately, we're just going to have to play the second game. Iowa takes on Rutgers. Big Ten showdown on a Friday night. Iowa is a 2.5-point road favorite going to Piscataway. Total in the game is 46.5. It's actually coming up. So far, Iowa's beaten Albany. Relatively clean game there. They lose to Iowa State 16-13. They only had a 25% post-game win expectancy. I mean, they threw an interception at their own 33. That gave Iowa State basically the touchdown they needed to win the game. The rest of the contest was punts. And then they beat UMass last week. So 2 really easy games, a tough loss for Iowa brings them here at 2-1. Meanwhile, Rutgers, they beat Ohio 34-31 in a crazy shootout. And they had a punt block touchdown. So kind of weird there. They beat Miami, Ohio 45-17. And they actually allowed 8.4 yards per play. So that is a big concern. The issue with Miami, Ohio is they threw an interception at their own 12, which led to an immediate Rutgers touchdown. And last week they played an FCS team. So defense has become a major concern for Rutgers. They lost their DC to UMass, actually. And they've had some personnel changes, which I didn't think it was going to be this bad, but it might be this bad. So we have right away, I don't know, it's the opposite of that dumb phrase. What is it? The unstoppable force meets the immovable object. This is what the stoppable Iowa offense meets the movable Rutgers defense. Anyway, injury-wise, Iowa's had a lot of them. Reese Vanderzee still hasn't played. Addison Ostrenia at tight end. He's now out for the season. They lose Xavier Williams for some length of time, but they might be getting back Kamari Moulton at running back, so that could help the run game. Zach Lutmer also got banged up in the defensive end. We'll see if he can play. There's a lot going on for Iowa right now. On the Rutgers side, TJ Campbell at running back got carted off. And then playing the FCS team, they did hold some guys out. So I think Tyler Needham will be back on the O-line. I think Ian Strong will be back at receiver. They just had no reason to play them last week. It was a waste of our time against Norfolk State. So Mark Gronowski has not lived up to expectation. It is what it is. He is a 59% completion percentage, 4.9 yards per attempt, no big-time throws, 2 turnover-worthy plays. He's not running the ball. Some of this is because of their offense by design has hindered him. Also been some weird stuff in games. He was cramping in like the second quarter of week 1, so you can't really run a guy who's cramping every other snap laying on the field. So I'm not sure what to make of this. I don't think he's been maximized, but I don't think he's helped either. He's taken 6 sacks. The pressure rate is at 38%. You might be saying, oh, that's not good. What's going on with the O-line? The O-line's been awesome. He's holding the ball for an eternity, well over 3 seconds on average per time to throw. It's been a disaster. Now, one position that hasn't helped him is the pass catchers. They've dropped 14% of his catchable targets. That's a problem too. So in general, you mix all that up in a cauldron, and what do you get? The same old Iowa offense. I still personally think there's upside for a couple of reasons. One, you get back Kamari Moulton. Losing Xavier Williams hurts. It's kind of one guy in, one guy out, but the run game still should be fine. The running backs are talented. The offensive line is awesome. This was projected as the #1 Big Ten offensive line in the preseason. They had 3 starters back, solid replacements at every position, some with some experience. And so far, they've shown that they're still a top 3 unit at the worst. The offensive line has done nothing but favors for everyone else. Where you can poke holes aside from QB, the supporting cast, again, it's very weak, especially at receiver. Sam Phillips, a Chattanooga transfer, is your top receiver with 90 yards. Now, you lose Ostrenia at tight end. They love to play 2 of those. That hasn't helped. You don't have your presumed #1 receiver from the beginning of the season, Reese Vanderzee. He's still not expected back. They just need to figure out stuff to do. Like, Caden Wetchin should probably be playing more. He's like broke whatever that record was for all these different kinds of touchdowns, receiving, rushing, returns. If he's that good and dynamic, get the ball in his hands. I don't care what you have to do. Like, you can't be this bad. So their offense in generally does not grade out that poorly, and that's because it's mainly O-line driven. So now they face Rutgers defense, which has allowed a lot of production to basically everyone they faced. They don't have any metrics inside the top 100 other than pass rush. They just allowed 6.5 yards per attempt to Parker Navarro. On the ground, 7.7 yards per carry. They allowed 5.3 yards per attempt through the air to DeQuan Finn, 11.4 yards per carry. Yards per attempt. 11.4 yards per attempt to DeQuan Finn through the air. This Rutgers defense has a ton of problems. We just weren't expecting them to be this bad heading into the season because 4 defensive returners back. Most of them were okay. The only one who was a disaster is Kaj Sanders in the defensive backfield. I thought some of their transfers would be better, but Jet Elad and Cam Miller have been atrocious back there, so you've been able to throw the ball over top. And when you say DeQuan Finn's name, generally you're not saying it for his prowess as a passer, but even he's been able to beat them over the top. I think the edge group is okay. That's largely an Eric O'Neill stat. He's been good. The interior is a problem. I don't know. Maybe losing their defensive coordinator was that much of an issue, and it's become really a problem moving forward. I don't know. But one thing we can say, this Rutgers defense is not together right now. On the other side, we have Ethan Kaliak-Manis playing much better. Competition's not been great, but 72% completion, 9.5 yards per attempt, 6 big-time throws, no turnover-worthy plays, doesn't take a lot of sacks. He's been solid, and part of it is the O-line has been better than expected. We were projecting them as a top half O-line at the worst. They had 5 back with starting experience. They have a couple injuries. They lose Dante Chin. He's out for the year, but Needham's been banged up. I think he'll be back. Otherwise, the rest of the group is solid. This is a very good offensive line, definitely above average. And the skill players are much better. Even with Monangai gone, the run game is in a pretty good spot with Antoine Rabin. He's at nearly 6 yards per carry. Losing CJ Campbell hurts, but I think Ja'Shawn Benjamin's been completely fine as a change of pace himself. This is the best Rutgers receiving room, maybe of my lifetime. They have a 4-star, 6'5" X receiver in KJ Duff, who leads the team in receiving. Ian Strong missed their last game. He would be the leader in receiving yards if he didn't sit out against the FCS team. And then DT Sheffield. You have a North Texas transfer rounding out the receiving room, not to mention 3 experienced tight ends because of all the injuries last year. It's the best Rutgers offense I can remember. In Iowa's defense, they still come in 15th overall, but they have shown more cracks than previous years. And it hasn't been against good competition. Really, you just have to look at the Iowa State game, who has a putrid offensive line. Rocco Becht, same thing we always see with Becht in these games where Iowa State's kind of outmatched, but he's a hero. Only 5 yards per attempt. It wasn't good on a per-play basis, but he always found ways to make the plays that counted and beat Iowa. So the biggest concern for Iowa heading into the year was the secondary needing to rely more on Deshaun Lee and TJ Hall. Both of them were benched at times last year. They also lost both their linebackers, Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson. Coming into the year, I had hopes so Iowa has 4 highly recruited linebackers, 4 stars, all of them. They're all young, either freshmen or redshirt freshmen, but so far they have played a combined 19 snaps. And this linebacker unit has been a massive problem for this team. So in general, back 7, linebackers, defensive backs, I think they're a concern for Iowa when you're facing a team like Rutgers with a good offensive line, because if you're Iowa, you need that pass rush to get home before you get beat. They've been able to do that against poor offensive lines like Iowa State. Rutgers is a lot better than Iowa State. So now you're going to put more strain on Deshaun Lee, TJ Hall, Nwankpa via those 3 good Rutgers receivers of all sizes and shapes and speeds. It's not a combination I like. I don't want to say Iowa-Rutgers shootout, but how crazy would that be in this game? Now, the things that work against it, pass rates aren't high for either team. Paces are really slow. But, man, Rutgers' defense has so many concerns. I wouldn't be surprised if Iowa moves the ball. On the other side, Iowa has enough concerns where I think an improved upstart Rutgers offense can move the ball. I'm not going to play that total. It's too scary, but I am going to play Rutgers. I like their coach. I think if Shiano can get anything together on the defensive side of the ball, Rutgers runs away with this game. That hasn't happened, so I'm going to play the 2.5 and sit with my Rutgers ticket and hope that the home field advantage of Piscataway gets them there. But we'll play this at the 2.5, and that will do it for today. Leave comments if you have them, suggestions, requests for future games. Otherwise, just thank you. I appreciate you watching. Until next time, good luck, everyone. We'll see you later.